judiciary that almost exclusively tries to reform only Hinduism. On July 1, 2022, the Supreme Court Justices Surya Kant and J.B. Pardiwala refused to entertain a plea to curb multiple FIRs against Nupur Sharma for merely quoting what is derived from the revered Islamic scriptures, Sahih al-Bukhari 5134, Book 67, Hadith 70, and Sunnah al-Nasai 3378, Volume 4, Book 26, Hadith 3380. They could have left it at that and dismissed the case and broken for lunch. But they didn't. It is not for me to judge them, because there already is a case pending against me for criminal contempt of court for merely standing with a man who criticized the court. But hear me quote the two justices verbatim and decide for yourself whether their cruel remarks against a hapless, victimized, shunned, discarded, hunted young Hindu woman were not bolstered by decades of institutional vilification, ridicule, and discrimination against Hindus. Things do not happen in isolation. They build upon existing edifices, brick by punishing brick. Would the judges have thrown a non-Hindu petitioner to the wolves similarly? I now quote what they said to Nupur, quote, "You have ignited the whole country, and you have the cheek and the courage to come to the court to ask for discretionary relief? You are single-handedly responsible for the burnings in the country. Your statement is responsible for the unfortunate killing in Udaipur. Are you facing a security threat, or have you become a threat to the security of the nation itself? You possess a loose tongue, and you keep on making irresponsible statements. You should apologize to the whole country for your remarks made either for cheap publicity, political agenda, or some nefarious activities. Your petition shows your obstinate character and your arrogance that you think that the magistrate courts are too small for you. Sometimes power goes to your head and people think they have a backup and they can make any kind of statement and go scot-free. You went on a channel and made irresponsible statements without even an inkling of the ramifications and serious consequences, that how seriously it will disturb the fabric of the society. You have a loose tongue," unquote. That the legislature discriminates against Hindus is not news. I have provided enough examples, and plenty more exist, of minority appeasement at the cost of the majority. But what is to be done when the judiciary singles out the Hindus? What is the recourse then? What is the recourse when you find that the fine lady who stands atop our temples of justice belligerent, when you find her sword that is pointing to the skies blunted and her blindfold perforated, when you find her scales rusted? What is the recourse? There is none. Because when the Supreme Court decides to remove discrimination from Islam, it is stopped from doing so by the Parliament. When it decides to remove discrimination or perceived discrimination from Hinduism, it is encouraged to do so by the Parliament. I talk here of the infamous 2018 Sabrimala judgment, the verdict of Supreme Court that went against the temple and its centuries-old tradition, dictated to its keepers by the celibate deity himself. Recall the iconic statement of the dissenting judge Indu Malhotra in the original Sabrimala judgment. I quote, "Notions of rationality cannot be invoked in matters of religion," unquote. Truer words were never spoken. Is it up to the Supreme Court to counsel and inform believers, billions of them, that the holy Ganges could not have emanated from the tresses of Lord Shiva, or that Prophet Muhammad couldn't have traveled to heaven on a winged horse, or that Jesus Christ couldn't have walked on water or turned water to wine? Yes, the courts do have a role to play in intervening and preventing oppressive and hurtful religious practices, but then again, what is hurtful to you and me may not be hurtful to the believer. For example, I believe that stipulating a dress code is oppressive, but can the Supreme Court ban it? If it does, it would be violating the direct commandments of Allah as revealed in the Holy Quran 24, 31, 33, 59, 7, 26. Would that be acceptable to the Muslims as well as to all those liberals and feminists who cheered the Sabrimala verdict that vetoed the discrimination? And to be sure, so-called discrimination, because was it discrimination or perceived discrimination to begin with? After all, there are many Hindu temples where men are barred entry, like the Kamakhya temple, Brahmaji temple, Kumari Amman temple, Atukal Bhagavati temple, Mata temple, and there are many Hindu temples, including many Lord Ayappa temples, where menstruating women are allowed entry. It is only in this particular Lord Ayappa shrine that, because of the vow of the deity to remain celibate, menstruating women in a particular age bracket are not allowed entry. And as for menstruating women, it is expressly forbidden for them to touch the Quran, recite a complete verse, enter a mosque, do salat, perform tawaf, fast or have sex. 5679, 2222, Tirmidhi 315 and Hadith Sharif. So are we now going to redact these verses? There exists a fundamental contradiction between Articles 21, which is right to life, dignity and liberty, and 25, right to practice any religion. If one follows or respects one, it is almost impossible to follow or respect the other. This is because there are tens of thousands of religious commandments, directives, decrees that directly contradict Article 21. If you are a true Catholic woman, you cannot be ordained as a priest. If you are a true Muslim woman, you cannot sing, dance, play sports, drink, fornicate, be a homosexual, wear what you want, or be an apostate. A progressive secular state that correctly removes discriminatory practices from the Hindu religion, but cowers behind a lamppost like a wet cat when it comes to removing discriminatory practice from other religions, is not a progressive secular state. It is a scared state. The truth is that one would have to be an atheist, possibly of the militant variety, to always override Article 25 and support Article 21. I, being a Darwinian atheist, am fine with this. But are you, are the judges, are the politicians, are the millions of my countrymen and women? That is the question. Until the time you answer it, why reform and tinker and restructure and amend only Hinduism while leaving other religions alone? Why bring in legislations and laws and judgments exclusively for Hindus and Hinduism? In 2019, the Tripura High Court banned animal sacrifice, even though Hindus argued that this practice was a centuries-old tantric tradition of worshipping the 10 Mahavidyas, namely Kali, Tara, Tripura Sundari, Bhuvaneshwari, Bhairavi, Chinnamasta, Dhrumavati, Bagalamukhi, Matangi and Kamala. What the Hindus pleaded was also in keeping with the famous 1954 Shirur Mutt judgment that established the sanctity of an essential religious practice. But the judges would hear none of it. Quote, "No person, including the state, shall be allowed to sacrifice any animal or bird within the precincts of any temple within the state of Tripura," unquote, they wrote. In 2014, the judges of the Himachal Pradesh High Court had similarly banned the 600-year-old tradition of animal sacrifice during Kullu Dasara. In 2017, the quasi-judicial NGT ordered a ban on the tolling of bells and the chanting of shlokas by devotees at Amarnath. Praise the Lord, they simultaneously didn't allow the delivery of azan through loudspeakers there. Or perhaps they indeed did, but the vagaries of the state have meant the order is yet to reach Bholenath's abode. The question to be asked is, why should only the religious Hindu be prevented from conducting animal sacrifice? If the state is against animal sacrifice, and laudably so, then shouldn't it be against all animal sacrifices conducted in the name of religion? But is that the case? If the honorable courts object to the taking of the life of an animal through a religious ritual, do they have the guts to ban halal? Every single day, more than 1 billion Muslims eat meat after this religious ritual has been performed. In fact, it is an essential requirement. The dabiha, or the prescribed ritual slaughter, must be staged. The incision must be precise and deep, that cuts the carotid artery and the trachea. The blood must be drained completely. This while the animal is still alive. The head of the animal must be aligned to the Kaaba, and it is essential that Bismillah Rahman Rahim be uttered. Furthermore, only a Muslim can perform the slaughter. So according to the honorable judges, this isn't a ritual. In fact, this ritualistic practice has been deemed so cruel in many European countries that it is mandatory to stun the animal before performing halal. But do our judges have the courage to shun selectivity when it comes to animal rights? Hindu festivals and celebrations and sporting events are easy target, be it Jallikattu or Kambala or Naga Panchami or even kite flying during Makar Sankranti. Or believe it or not, restricting the height of the Dahi Handi during the Janmashtami festival. The judges have capped the human pyramid height to 20 feet, saying anything above would inflict harm to the participating humans. Quote, "We know only of Krishna stealing butter. Did he also indulge in acrobatics while stealing it?" The judges mocked. I want to ask the judges, what happens to all their mockery and colorful retorts when it comes to Muharram, where tens of thousands of Muslims openly inflict serious bodily harms to themselves and to others? With whips laced with steel claws that stab deep into the devotee's flesh amid chants of Ya Abbas, Ya Abbas, is that not inflicting harm? But do our milords have the guts to ban this ritual during Muharram? It is the same while banning crackers during Diwali but allowing millions of tons of stubble to be burned during the same month, or millions of trees to be cut during Christmas, or allowing fireworks during New Year celebrations, because apparently only Diwali is increasing the carbon footprint, you see. Only Diwali is contributing to pollution. The rest are purifying the environment. And for those who blame Diwali for the state of Delhi air every year, here is some perspective. An area of 17,900 square kilometers, or 12 times the size of Delhi, is on fire continuously for weeks on end right next to Delhi. 35 million tons of stubble is burnt right under the noses of our judges. Honestly, I am now convinced the only way stubble burning can be banned is if we call it Parali Dahan, a Hindu festival, wherein, according to the Atharva Veda, Lord Vishnu burnt demon king Paralisura when he enslaved Maruts and storm king Rudra. Only then will the judges ban stubble burning. Stubble burning releases 149 million tons of carbon dioxide, which is 55% of all Indian transport carbon dioxide emission. The financial burden of treating the resulting respiratory diseases alone is 154 times more than the cost of the machines needed for stubble extraction. But if our politicians and judges thought like this, we'll be a developed nation. And with our courts acting the way they are towards Hindus and their rituals, can the state be far behind? Dharmapuram Adhinam's Patina Pravesam, the ancient Hindu ritual of carrying the priest with reverence, has now been banned. And that too by invoking clauses of, believe it or not, forced labor. You mean to tell me the devotees are being forced to carry the ponting they so revere? What next? I'll tell you what next. There will soon come a time when the state will ban the pulling of the Lord Jagannath on the pretext of forced labor. But there will never come a time when the state bans Sidia Gestatoria, the tradition of carrying a Christian priest. There will never come a time when the state bans the hoisting of the bulky tazia on dozens of tired, exhausted shoulders during Muharram. There will never come a time when the state bans the tradition of carrying a heavy wooden cross on Eastern Parade. This selectivism against only Hindu festivals and religious practices will soon result in a scenario where the Hindus begin to dislike their own traditions. From there, the road to self-loathing is but a few yards away, and we know where that road leads to, forsaking Hinduism itself and accepting another religion. As if on cue, the courts have recently opined that non-Hindus cannot be barred by temples into setting up their shops on temple premises. We cannot allow this, thundered the bench. So let me get this straight. A man whose religion orders him to viscerally hate the Hindu, commands him to convert this infidel, and if he can't, then kill him at an opportune moment. A man whose religion tells him no one has the right to be worshipped but Allah 4062, that those who deny the Quran, their necks will be shackled 4070, that polytheists or Hindus are the worst of creatures 98:6, that fight against those who do not believe in Allah and who do not adopt Islam, fight them until they give the jizya while they are humbled 929, that do not marry polytheists or Hindu women unless they believe in Islam 2:221, that those who disbelieve in our verses, we will drive them into a fire 456, that do not take disbelievers as friends unless they convert and kill them if they refuse 489. The court orders the Hindu temple to give this man the temple's own land to set up a shop in. Is there a finer example of how entrenched snubbing of Hindu interests has become? There is no other way of saying this. The camel has begun to sneak into the tent. An open sky for Hindus awaits.